Hello everyone and welcome to Factorio 2.0. I'm Exterminator and thank you for joining me today. And in this overview, we're going to be going over all of the main quality of life updates and changes and additions to the base game of Factorio 2.0. So I already did an overview for Space Age, and just a quick clarification for anyone who may still be a little fuzzy on it or just doesn't know in general. Come October 21st, there's going to be the release of Space Age as well as Factorio 2.0. It's kind of one and the same, but not really. So Space Age is the DLC that you have to pay for, and you get all the features we went over in that overview, like planets and space travel and, all quality elevated rails, all that type of stuff is what you get in the paid Space Age DLC. But with that is the 2.0 update, where if you already have the game, you just get this update. Like, it'll just come out and you just have to switch, update to it. You don't have to pay anything extra. Obviously, if you don't own the game yet, you have to buy the base game, but you do not need to buy the Space Age expansion for the 2.0 update, which is where a lot of this quality of life stuff comes in. And just for one last clarification, I feel like this should be obvious, but if you buy Space Age, you're obviously getting 2.0 and everything that comes with it. So it's not, you're obviously getting that as well. But there's a lot of awesome stuff, and I'm going to go over the majority, like the main parts. There's so much and so many little things. I can't cover absolutely everything, but I went through the list, and these are the things that I find, I think are going to be the most noticeable and useful to, the general public. So let's start off with the new rail shapes. So there's a bunch of new rail shapes you can make. I didn't make every single one. But there's a lot of options you can now do with normal ground rails. Again, you have to buy Space Age to actually get the elevator rails, but you can still do a lot of cool new things with the ground rails. So you can make like proper S-bins here with your ground rails. You can make better diagonals and like kind of shorter curvature turns here. There's some examples I've set up. So you can now have like a really nice and also signalable setup here. Previously, this wouldn't have really been able to be signaled properly, but now, even with just one rail gap, you can actually have your signals properly. So, I mean, you would actually probably want like a chain signal here, but you can actually put these in the places that they need to go. And then you can just do this bigger and bigger, and it gets easier, but you can make just much nicer looking junctions and junctions that are just easier to signal and have better and more signal spots on them. So this is a nice addition that, even if you don't have the elevator rails, you can still, do this and just improve your rail system overall. Similarly, with trains is they've added train interrupts, and this is a huge thing. In fact, this is going to be something I have to make a tutorial on just specifically, because there's a lot to this, and it's honestly pretty kind of complicated to get into and just a lot to digest. I haven't even fully, looked through it and fully understand to the full extent of what you can do with it, just because there's so much involved with it. But there are some simple things you can do with it, which are really helpful. So let's go over some very simple examples here. We have a train set up in our kind of test area here, and I've already have some interrupts because we actually have like a full base running here. But these are the interrupts I've created, and you can do this. You can do these with names, or you can do them with pictures and signals. Personally, I find the pictures or rich text is it's technically called, I believe, to be a little better and easier just across the board, because you can manipulate it a bit better than the text, in my opinion. But for example, one thing we could do is make an interrupt where if a train is running low on fuel, it will basically tell that train to automatically go to a fueling station. So you would have to, of course, have a fueling station set up, but assuming you did, you can create an interrupt to say, like, if fuel is below two fuel pieces in any locomotive, then send this train to the fuel station and don't leave until it's full on fuel, which previously you couldn't really do because, there was no way to like tell a train to go somewhere else once it was like away from the station. But now you can actually do this. So let's start with naming this. So you can type it in, or you can just go in here, and I'm just going to be very simple with it and say rocket fuel for this, and I'm going to make it a little more comprehensive and just add a locomotive to it. And then you click confirm. And then this is where you set up your interrupt. So there's a few options here. You can allow interrupting other interrupts. So this is a fairly niche thing, but there are some cases where you would want to do this. And again, I'm not going to go into super deep detail here because there needs to be an entire tutorial on this. But you start by setting your condition. And this is basically saying, when should this interrupt be triggered? Like, when do you actually want this to happen? And there's a bunch of options you can choose from. For this, I'm going to choose fuel any locomotive. So if any locomotive in the train has lower than a certain amount of fuel, I want this interrupt to turn on, basically. So if rocket fuel is less than 2 in any locomotive, now this example I only have one, but obviously if you had an actual train, you would probably have more than one. And then you can add additional conditions here, just like you could in a schedule, but I'm going to leave it at that. Then you choose where you want it to actually go, because this is triggered when this condition is met, but it still needs an actual destination to send it to. So then we can set up a destination. And let's say you had a fuel station set up, named basically, I'm just going to name it the same thing as this, because that makes sense to me. So we're going to go in here and we're going to name it this. I don't actually have a station set up like this, but again, assuming you did, or whatever you want to name it, then you would add this and then you set a condition. And you could do like a fuel count. I think just the most straightforward is just going to say full fuel, like just sit here until the train is full of fuel, basically. And you set that. And then what's going to happen is this is not going to be in the actual station list. So you can see there's a separation here. This is interrupts and this is stations. So like if I have, you know, some route, I obviously can't get here, but it triggered this interrupt instantly because there's no rocket fuel in here. So it's triggering this. I only put coal in there. But this is just gonna, when it's not triggered, it's gonna remain down here. So train interrupts, there's a lot you can do with them. They're very powerful, but it's a bit to get your head around. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. And we also have train groups, which are really nice. So you can see no group assigned up here. If I go in here, I can either select a train group. So for example, let's say I want this to be a raw resource pickup train, and it shows there's already 7 trains here. If I just select this, it's just going to automatically assign this train the entire schedule and interrupt setup that all the trains in that group have. So instead of having to like copy paste from one train to another, like you previously had to do, you can obviously still do that, but you can also just set up groups so that you can just easily have them do specific things. Granted, this one's broken because there's no path here, but that's beside the point. Now, for creating a new group, I will say one small complaint I have is, as of the time of making this video, the only way to actually create new groups is within this menu. So you would create a new group just by, renaming it. You will just say whatever, and it will create a new group. And you would then have to like reset up your whole thing here and clear your interrupts or whatever. However, there is a groups menu in your train overview, but there's no way to actually create it in here, which I found kind of unintuitive. I hate to complain during these overview videos, but this is definitely something that I hope they add. It just makes sense to be able to add groups within here instead of having to find a train and do it that way. But that's just something to note there. Next up is logistic groups. So just like train groups, you can have logistic groups. You can then actually set groups. So there's no group assigned to this, but I'm just going to say like main or something like this. Let's just say this is stuff that I always want to have on me. And then I can just add a section and I'll just say like outposting, and I can do that. And then I could, like clear this, but then I can come in here and when I go to select one, it's going to give me all the options of the ones I've created. And you can just make a bunch of these different groups. So you can have different request setups based on whatever task you want to, complete at the time. And you can just like turn them on and off with the check mark or remove them. It's really, really nice. This is something I wanted for a very long time. And there's been some mods that do this, but it's finally in the base game. And then another huge thing, and this is actually, I may make a whole video on this that I'm about to go over because this is just really, really nice, is the Factoriopedia. So they've added basically a wiki inside the game. And while parts of it may not be as comprehensive as the actual full wiki, on on the internet. It is so nice and so convenient. I've used it so many times, particularly with Space Age. If you're still just playing on 2.0 base game, you may not use it as much if you're pretty used to the game. But if you get Space Age, then there's going to be a lot of new stuff for you, and you're probably going to use it a lot. So you can access it up here. But also, what I really like is you can use the hotkey Alt left click on basically anything in the game, and it will bring up the page for it in the pedia. So let's say, I have some space age, like there's asteroid processing, right? Let's say I don't know really what that is. Okay, well, I look here, I could do that. Or I can Alt left click, and it will just open this item in the Factoriopedia, and it will give me everything. It will give me how it's unlocked, what it's made in, the products it gives, the ingredients. This one is pretty simple, but you, of course, can just scroll through here. It essentially lists every single thing in the game. If you want to see, like, bulk inserters, for example, it's going to tell you everything about them and the ingredients, what it can be made in, what it's used in, how it's unlocked. And this is just so nice for, like anything new that's added. Additionally, they added super force building. So this is like kind of a really aggressive mode of blueprinting where you can take a blueprint, and if you use the hotkey to super force build it, which is Control Shift click for build basically by default, it's essentially just going to like stamp over whatever happens to be in the way. So if I have like a station and I'm like, okay, well, I want a station here, normally I can't do that, right? But if I use the hotkey, if I Control Shift left click, you can see it's just going to select everything in the way for decon, and then it'll decon it and then place this. And this is just kind of a nicer way of, forcing things down. If there happens to be stuff in the way, you can just be like, I don't care what's there, just remove it and let me place this blueprint, which is really nice in, some specific situations. Additionally, they added searching to the remote view. So if you hit M, this is what is basically the map, but they renamed it to remote view, and there's a lot you can do with this. This is actually incredibly powerful. So one of the things you can do is search, and this works better than I expected. So let's say, for example, I want to know like where inserters are made. Maybe it's someone else's base, or like I set them up just recently and I forgot where I put them or something, and I want to find them. If I search inserter, it will show me, okay, well, I have normal inserters made here, and I have fast and bulk inserters made here. You can just zoom in and find them. Or I'm like, okay, well, where are my rocket silos? Okay, well, ROC, you can see that processing units, PROC, is basically searching, basically doing like a text search for like names. So there's rocket silos, rocket fuel, and then advanced oil processing for ROC in the name there. And it's just super nice because you can just find basically whatever you want. If you want like advanced circuits, you can see, so if I click this, it's going to say, okay, boom, it's right there. And then additionally, you can pin things. So, I don't know why I would want to pin advanced circuits. Maybe the inserters would be a better example. If I want to remember like where these are made, I can just pin these, and then it's going to stay on here, and it adds them over here. And then even if I like close this, I can just constantly know where this stuff is, right? Which is super nice. So I can clear them here. Additionally, with this, you can manually pin stuff by Alt right clicking. So let's say I want to pin, where maybe I have like a box of items. This would be a good example. Maybe I have a box of items that I'm saving for something or what have you, or I dump my inventory in and I want to remember where it is. I can shift right click, and you can see it's now going to be pinned in the map and, actually on like in normal view, and it's going to keep that pin for me and show me where it is. And then you could like rename it too, obviously, if you want it more specific rather than iron chest. But this is just really useful. Or like vehicles. I don't know about you all, but I constantly leave my cars and tanks all over the place. So you could just like hop out and really quick alt right click it and just walk away. Easy as that. So like there's a tank here. I could just, when I got out of it, I could have just alt right click, takes half a second, and then leave, and then I could easily find my tank. One other thing is blueprint parametrization, and that's what we had set up on this blueprint. Now this is in my opinion, potentially even better than train interrupts. I've yet to mess with either one of those extensively enough to make a solid judgment, but this is really, really incredible. So you can do so much with blueprint parameterization. And how this works is essentially you can set like just a generalized signal in a blueprint for something, and then when you go to place the blueprint, it's going to let you pick the item and it will change everything with that generalized signal to be whatever item you pick when you place it. Now that's a very kind of convoluted explanation, but it will make a lot more sense right now when I show you. So we'll just go ahead and like remake what I did there. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this so we can do this together. If we take a blueprint and we go to blueprint this, so we'll notice one thing to note, this is actually very important, is for this to work, you need to set up the things that you will want to be a parameter prior to blueprinting it. So you'll notice that I already have filters set up in here, and I already have a station name on here. You can see there, it's coal requester chest. You need to make sure that you have these preset before blueprinting by default, otherwise it won't let you set parameters. There is an option in the options menu to actually be able to do that, but that's unchecked by default, at least for now. But we set this up. Alrighty, so for setting up the parameterization, there's a few things you need to do beforehand. Like I mentioned, is you need to obviously set your filters first, or put your icons in. And then for this particular example, it's important that we actually set different icons for the different things that we want to be able to change with a parameter. So these are coal, and if this previously was coal, and the problem is that it's going to like not really see the difference when we go to set a parameter. So I want to set this to a different icon, and that's fine for now, even though this obviously doesn't make sense for coal to be coming from a copper station. This will be completely configurable once we set up our parameters. It's just important that beforehand we just make it something different than this. So we're going to go ahead and do this here together. Let's assume you have something like this set up. And I'm going to grab this, and then we go into here and go to parameterize, this new option up here. And you notice that everything basically that had an icon, which was the coal here, the copper, and the requester in the station, is now something that we can configure. So let's start off with this. We're going to say station type. And you can either just go in here and select something, or probably easier than that is just tell it to be a parameter if you want to do that in this case. And that's going to basically change that copper signal to just be this 0 parameter. And then we're not going to change this because we want this to be the same. But then, and you can rearrange these so this will make a little more sense. And then this, we're just going to say like inserter filter. And it would make sense probably for this to match the station, but we're just going to set this to parameter. And then we're going to say confirm. And you'll notice this changes all to 1, and then the station name would change to that is to the 0. It doesn't show it in here, but it will once we do it. And you can create this. And what's going to happen now is it's just so cool. So you place this, and it now brings up these options you can select. So the name I gave it, station type, you can see there, it's showing the station name 0 and requester. And I can now change this to whatever I want the item to be. So let's say we're creating like an iron ore drop off. I set this to iron ore, and then probably you would obviously want the filter to match that, but maybe not. You know, I don't know. There's many different things you can do with this. And instead of having to have like a constant combinator in the blueprint that you then have to go over and like set a thing in, it's just super quick. Do this and select that. And now all of a sudden, this blueprint is set to filter iron, and then the station is also properly named to be the same format, but a different item type. And again, this is a very simplistic thing you can do with it, but you can do just like significantly more with it. Another amazing thing you can do is do this on assembling machines or just other buildings, any building with a recipe basically. So let's just choose different stuff. For example, let's do assemblers because we don't have all the modules unlocked. So if we do module 1, and then let's just say, for example, we were like making assembler 2s or something here, right? you can do this, and then we could blueprint this and go into our parameters, and we can change this. So, in this case, we could just tell each of these to be a parameter, and we'll just say like recipe 1 and then recipe 2. And you can easily just set this up. So this is like for modules, this would be really useful, or even for like assembler 3s, because those take assembler 2s. So you could do this, and then when you go to place it, you can set the recipe to be whatever you want based on these parameters you set. And I mean, you can just see, so like, there's all these different modules of different tiers. You can set it up with a parameter system like this, and instead of having to like build and set the recipe every single time in each machine for the different modules, even though it's like basically an identical setup, just different recipe selections, you can just easily do that here. And it's really, really nice. So let's just say recipe 1, we want blue, and recipe 2, we want that. Boom, done. Right, and it's just really easy to do this in mass. Okay, so moving on from this, we have some other stuff. I'm not going to show some of this just because it's like so self-explanatory, but they added a third graph to the electric network overview to track the charge of accumulators over time, which is super nice. They added fuel condition to train schedules, which we already saw during the train interrupt bit, where you can actually set conditions based on like fuel count and fuel amounts. They added an option to have locomotives update their color automatically based on the station color they're going to. So this is really cool. Let's just set this to something other than default. We'll set this to like blue. And if we take a locomotive and place it, and then we select that station. So let's clear that, and then we're going to add this. And if we put fuel in here and tell this to go, you'll notice it actually changes its color to match the station. And it will do this dynamically. So you can easily then have like your trains be color coded based on where they're going, and just at a glance like look at a train and know where it's going based on its color, because it's obviously going to the corresponding colored station, which is really nice. They added a bunch of worker or robot in general updates and optimizations, and just made them smarter and more efficient. So both with construction robots as well as logistic robots, they improved the logic so that instead of having robots, like I'm sure most of us have experienced robots flying across the entire base to complete a task, because those were the only ones that happen to be free. But now they've improved it so like if there's robots closer that are going to actually be free sooner than the other ones would get there, it's going to like choose closer ones. So this should prevent issues of like having your personal roboports on and going to build something, and then like part of it gets built by your personal bots and the rest gets built by base bots. It should just like force it to all be your personal bots, because they're like right here. And they just made general like bot pathing and decision making for charging and stuff way better, which should help for pretty much anything you do with robots. Another huge thing is they added the ability to flip buildings, and with that inputs. So I have found this so far to be most useful with liquids and oil. So we have an example here. This is like how it would look in just 1.1 normally if you were to, place things opposite like this, and you have a problem where oil is diagonal and water is diagonal from each other, and you're going to have a nightmare trying to pipe this. But now you can just flip these. So you have two hotkeys, H for horizontal and V for vertical. V just literally turns the building, which is less useful. I mean, you still obviously need to turn things, but you can turn this. But you see it did change it though, right? Because you can see it's facing the same direction as this, but its inputs are swapped. So heavy it is here, and then petroleum's over here, which is the opposite of this one. So there's that. So you can do that. I'm going to put it back. But what I found really useful is horizontally flipping, because now the inputs are lined up and you can create much nicer setups that are more compact and way easier to pipe when you actually have your inputs aligned. And then same with this. So I'm going to just hit H and swap these. And now my setups are aligned, and we can actually see that on a larger scale in here. So I've done the same thing with my build here. And it just allows me to make a really compact, nice looking setup with them facing back to back like this. And this brings us to another awesome thing is pipe visualization. So you can now mouse over pipes and it will show you not only like their entire system of that particular pipeline, but it also is generally color coded to the fluid that's in it. I say generally because like oil is gray for some reason and petroleum is pink, but although I mean generally it's the same. And then on top of that, you can actually turn this on and off in the map. So if we come over to show pipelines, we can now see all of our pipelines nicely visually represented in the map view. And you can just follow along and see everywhere that your pipes are running. And of course, they're identically color coded as we just saw. This is incredible. I love this so much. Also, can have you can like ghost select a module and then have it go in here. So if I go in here and do this, it's going to essentially put in these requests to have these. You can see this little icon here. It's going to now, like if this were in robo range of something that had these modules, it is now going to request these, which is really nice. And you can do the same thing with an upgrade planner, but that's really nice. Oh yeah, all turrets. So all turrets can now have filtering and priority shooting, which is absolutely fantastic and actually extremely crucial if you're playing with Space Age, particularly for asteroid targeting, but just generally with enemies, this is really incredible. So if you click on a turret, this applies to all turrets except artillery. This is not something you can do on artillery, but if you go in here, you can target priorities. So you can choose basically anything. I'm not sure why you would want to shoot this stuff, but obviously enemies would be the most helpful. Is you could choose. So like, let's say what would actually be useful is, let's say you want to target spitters before biters, because spitters obviously are ranged, they do a lot of damage, and sometimes you can get wrecked because they just sit in the back firing. But now this laser turret is going to prioritize killing spitters before it shoots any biters. And then, again, you can just do this on anything. So gun turrets have a shorter range, right? Maybe we want to do the opposite. Maybe we want to say kill biters and then kill spitters. Or like prioritize large ones over small ones. And then you can also set this with the circuit network. So all of this can be circuit connected, and you can set this with the circuit network as well if you'd like. And then flamethrowers can do it too, which is interesting. I mean, the AoE is obviously going to kill things that are maybe not in the target priority, but at least it will start by aiming at things that are, which is quite nice. Rocket silos also can be connected to the circuit network, which is nice. Additionally, they also buffer an additional rocket. So this is really, really nice. You can see we have 2 bars here for 100%. So one is basically the rocket you see, and then once that launches, it already has another one completely buffered and ready to go, which just makes the whole process faster. It like eliminates the whole like opening doors, raising the rocket animation thing, which slowed down rocket launches a fair bit. So this is really, really nice as well. And then while we're in here, you probably noticed prior to this, but in this remote view, you can essentially control anything. So you'll notice I have a selection of every single item that I've unlocked, or like even like asteroid stuff. But yeah, I've unlocked all of this. It's not every item in the whole game. Like you have to obviously still unlock it. But this allows you to just basically go in as if you were there and change whatever you want. Right? So previously you couldn't actually go into like assemblers and change the recipe remotely or anything like that, but now you can. I mean, you can do and also you can do this in ghosts. I can open this and actually set up the whole recipe and do everything I want. And same with like inserters, you can like set like filters and inserters or whatever as if you were actually there doing it. There's really no limitations as far as I found in terms of like what you can do in remote view versus what you can do in person. It's basically identical, aside from the fact you're not actually there. I mean, like if you pick stuff up, if you right click something to be picked up, it's gonna mark it for decon, not actually give it to you. But it does let you do basically anything you can do in person, which is absolutely fantastic. Another pretty big change is one they made to beacons, basically giving them diminishing returns and also buffing the effective beacons at lower numbers. And I'm going to throw up a chart on the screen here in a moment to show you this, because it's just a lot easier than explaining the entire thing. So I'm actually going to throw that up now. And you can see like the comparison of the effective beacons in 1.1 compared to 2.0, and then also like legendary and stuff if you're playing with quality. But you can see that in 1.1, like one beacon was just one effect, but then in 2.0, it basically has the same effect as like what 3 beacons would have been, or at least a speed effect of 3. And then 2, 1.1 was just 2, but in 2.0 is 4.24. And you can just follow the list here, and then there's an actual percentage comparison of 2.0 compared to 1.1. And then I'm going to actually show you. So following with that, you can see it follows exactly. We have 1 beacon here, and this craft speed is 3.125, which is, you can see that these are then increasing 3.9 and 4.5. So it kind of, there is a threshold where it just like levels out basically, which on this chart was highlighted in green at 8 essentially. So past that, like so 8 beacons is slightly better in 2.0 than it was in 1.1, but the main note to take away from this is previously it was kind of, I don't want to say pointless, but it was kind of not super effective to use like just 1 or 2 beacons because they didn't really do very much. But now it's actually extremely effective. Like this makes a huge difference just adding a couple beacons, and then it really swings the other way, as you saw on the chart, where if you actually build a lot, it becomes a lot less effective. So if you start getting near like 10, 12 or more beacons, like refineries can actually have like 14 or 16 or something, then because of their bigger footprint, it just becomes diminishing returns, just as the change name indicates. But that's just another thing that's important to know is it's actually definitely worth considering just throwing 1 or 2 beacons down on something, because it does significantly increase its production rate. They also added an option for when you go to select a map for no enemies instead of turning enemies off completely. So well, you have both. So you have the ability to turn enemies off completely, but you also have the ability to just set like enemies to not spawn, where it still keeps the spawners in the game, but the actual spawning of the units is turned off. And the main use for this is with Space Age, because like you still need stuff from spawners to like to progress. But in vanilla, this maybe wouldn't be super useful, but that option is there, which is nice. And additionally, pumps can now have fluid filters, so you can set pumps to actually filter fluids, which is really, really nice and useful. And then things like wires and discharge defense remotes and artillery remotes and Spidertron remotes have all just been moved to your taskbar here, or your hotbar, instead of actually being items. So you don't craft any of these anymore. You just have they're just like any of these other icons. You can just use them infinitely, which is really nice. The Pipette tool can now work on basically anything. So prior to 2.0, you couldn't actually pipette things like from your inventory necessarily, or like text screen or the ground, like tiles, but you can do all that now. So if I queue, which is pipette over concrete, I get it. If I well, you can't actually build trees, but if you like go in here and queue over it, you can do that. It actually works in the tech tree too. So if I queue over this, I get a red science pack, obviously after you leave the menu. If you open your Factoriopedia, you can queue over this. Basically anywhere there's an icon, you can queue over it, or whatever your hotkey is for Pipette, and get the picker for that, which is so nice. I used to get so frustrated by the fact you couldn't like do it in some places, but now you can do it basically everywhere. Also, map tags can be moved. So like if you add a tag somewhere, we'll just do whatever here and just do that. You can put it there, but then move it. So if you shift left click, you can move it here, which is useful, I guess. Maybe if you like move a production area or something, you can go ahead and remove it, or move it, or you can just remove it as well. And then they can be copied as well with the Pipette, so that's something else. You can copy map tags, which is fantastic. Corpses no longer despawn, so you don't have to worry about rushing to your body in the next 10 minutes before it despawns. They don't despawn, which is nice in my opinion. That's super nice. And then when you retrieve your corpse, the logistic requests will re-enable if they were enabled before death. And this is something I have wanted for so long, and this would drive me crazy in 1.1, is if you have logistics on and then you die, when you respawn, you would have to turn them on again, which was really annoying. So this now will just automatically do that. And if you rename a train stop, it will copy its color from existing stops with that name, so you don't have to go copy paste the color through. And then train stop priorities, which is actually really good. So under the enable train limit option, we have priorities where you can set this from 0 to 255, and it will basically just do exactly what it says, is give it a priority. So if I have this priority 1, or I guess the slide only goes to 10, but you could do 0. I feel like it should be the other way around, right? Like if you have a priority 1 thing, I feel like it's more important than a priority 2 thing, but this seems to be the opposite of that. Anyways, you can set this, and then like a train stop 90 will have trains sent to it before sent to like 50. Obviously, if you have like a train stop limit in here, it's going to, respect that. But this is really nice to evenly distribute trains, because you could just like have your priority like increment based on however you want to set it up. But it's really, really nice. And then moving forward, they changed like night vision from grayscale to more of like a orange color. They added different sounds for shooting different kind of target, added ambient sounds, a lot of circuit network stuff. So they added a bunch of different things with circuit network. They added the Selector Combinator, which lets you do all kind of different things. I'm not great with circuits, so I'm going to give a very broad overview of this, but you can like have it output quality filters, quality transfer, outputs a target signal with the specified quality and its original value, stack size. So if I like have a constant combinator here with a circuit as the signal, and then I wire it, this is going to output, you can see there on the output, it's outputting the stack size of circuits. So this is really, really helpful, because instead of having to like manually set this somewhere, you just choose the item. It doesn't matter what the count is, and then you input it for stack size, and it will just output the stack size of whatever the item is. And you can do like random, outputs a random signal from input, so on and so forth. Again, this is one of those things where like if you don't really use the circuit network and are not great with it like me, probably won't use this a bunch, but if you are, you'll understand the like capabilities of these options and probably be really excited. And then also you can add descriptions to all combinators now, which is so helpful. So if you're setting up a more complex system, you could add a description to each thing, so it's kind of a better idea of what the purpose of each thing in that process is. So that's really, really nice. Additionally, decider combinators can have multiple conditions, which is absolutely fantastic. So they can check multiple conditions and send multiple outputs per combinator. Prior to this, it was just 1 and then 1, but I could like hook this up to like a chest or something and have it be reading multiple things from the chest and output multiple things. So you can just keep adding conditions here, which is really nice. I actually don't know the limit on this, but I'm assuming there must be some sort of limit here, but this is really nice. Also, you can send on like on just red or green wires. So once you actually select an item, you can send it only on green or only on red, which is really, really nice in some specific situations. Again, I don't really use combinators much, so I don't have any off the top of my head, but if you do use them a lot, I'm sure you can think of some great ways to utilize that. A lot of buffs for stuff. So they did a lot of combat balancing. Biter spawner health grows with evolution, which is a pretty huge thing. So as the evolution goes up, the spawners actually get more health and get stronger, which is definitely makes clearing out bases more difficult than it previously was as the game goes later. They increased the health of bigger worms and added laser resistance to them. In addition to that, they massively nerfed personal laser defenses to by 66% or something. They removed 15% explosive damage resistance from biter spawners. They doubled damage of artillery. I think that's to help offset the spawner evolution health increase. And then change all let's see, that's more of that. So that's combat. And then they doubled the distractor robot health, which is pretty nice. They increased the destroyer robot base damage from 10 to 20. and the range. They increase battery capacity of construction robots. Rocket explosive rocket projectiles accelerate twice as fast. And also another huge change is they changed the rocket recipe to be blue circuits instead of rocket control units. So rocket control units have been completely removed from the game, and blue circuits now replace that. Back to, I mean, this applies to not only circuit networks, but just it says any text field accepts like postfix formats. So like I could go in here and change this. If I do like 10K or 19K, whatever, it's going to accept this as 19,000, which is really nice. So instead of having to type like all of the zeros or whatever, you can just do like 10K, 5K, whatever. And then also you can do simple math expressions. So you could do like 3 times 7 plus 7K to then get your result of whatever that is. So it's just simpler, makes things a little more, quicker, easier to use. They also added display panels. So we now have this new item where you can set like icons for this. So this would be nice for maybe like marking where things are made. So you could set this and you could just say like blue belt, always show. You could if you want. Also, so this is going to be like, even when you don't select it, it's just going to be on 100% of the time. But if you turn this off, then it will only show when you select it, and then show and map to basically. So this just kind of helps, like especially if you're making a base in multiplayer or something, you can mark where things are, and then it's also going to show it here. It could get kind of crazy showing it in the map all the time, so I personally would probably not turn this on very often. I maybe even would turn off this option, but the icon always shows. So this is just a nice little quality of life feature there. And I think we're basically done. Oh yeah, assembling machines, chemical plants, oil refineries, and centrifuges can now send ingredient lists of their recipes to the circuit network. So this is really great. If you come into whatever, any of those things, and you do read ingredients, you can output this to combinators or inserters. So I've output this to an inserter and had it to set filters. So now this is going to set filters based on the ingredients in here. So this is fantastic for people doing like sushi belt builds, because because you can also, on top of this, you can also change assembler recipes with the circuit network. So let's say you had like rotating recipes within an assembler. You could have this, let's just say, let's have this be something different. Let's have this be like solar panels. And then it's going to change automatically the filter of the inserter to the ingredients for a solar panel. So you could have this set and change based on that. We could go even further and have like a combinator, and this is obviously a very simple example. If you take that and then we take this, let's do like red and then set recipe, you can see it's now set the recipe, and then boom, it's also matched the ingredients. You could have this obviously done automatically with a little more advanced setup, but you can see how incredibly useful this could be even in this one example. Additionally, you can also read nuclear reactor temperatures right here, and then send that to the network and do things with it, which is really, really nice. And a radar. So again, with the circuit network, you can remotely send like circuit network conditions on either green or red wires across like the planet or the surface. So this is like locked, like it's like you can do it on a per surface basis. So if you're playing with Space Age or like a mod that adds multiple surfaces, then this is going to be like you can do this on like a space platform, within the space platform, or like on like another planet, and then you can do it on Novice, but they're not going to correspond between planets. It's going to be on a per planet basis. And what you do is you just hook up a radar to whatever condition you want to be sending. So in this case, I'm just having this wire read the contents of this chest. And then I have a radar over here, not connected with anything else, just the green wire from it to here. And you can see it's displaying the things in this chest. So you can like send information from outposts now without having to wire up your whole rails. You can just use radars which is super nice. But again, you can only do it with like red or green wire. So you couldn't, like, if you have multiple outposts all doing this, is going to basically combine all the signals together. So it is kind of limited in that sense, but it is far better than not having it at all. So also, I believe, let's see, we have a few more changes here. So they reworked the whole fluid system. The fluid system is just generally more intuitive now and better. Like, fluids, it's a lot to go into the whole fluid thing, but essentially they just work better and not as finicky. So like, they'll actually split correctly if you have like a T junction. They'll kind of flow more smoothly through larger systems. But one note with that is they did make it so that there's like a limit of 250 tiles that fluid can travel before it needs a pump. So after 250 tiles of travel, of like pipe distance, you then have to put a pump. Otherwise, it's not going to flow past that point, which is fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal because it just generally flows better over long distances and within shorter distances too, basically across the board. But that's just something to keep in mind. They also made it so that water now produces 10 steam in boilers and heat exchangers, where before it only produced one. And what this allows you to do is build these super long setups for steam or bigger nuclear setups potentially, because, you know, before you were limited to like 20 boilers from one pump because you would run out of water, because it would take all the water to, you know, make the steam. But they essentially reduced it by a factor of 10, so you could, you know, potentially build your setup 10 times longer if you could supply it with fuel and stuff. So that's a pretty nice little change there. And then they added event-based technologies. So this is, I think, a little controversial because the event-based technologies I find incredibly frustrating as a player who already knows what they're doing. I understand why they added them for new players because it makes things a bit more intuitive. But an example of this would be like, for oil, you have to actually like pump oil from a pump jack to unlock oil processing. It's no longer a science pack research. Or for like uranium, you have to actually mine uranium to unlock uranium processing, which again, I think it's a bit more like straightforward potentially for new players, but for people who already like know what they're doing and how you get these things, I find it personally like kind of a roadblock, because like, well, what if I want to research this first and like pre-set up a build and then mine stuff? I can't do that. I have to mine the stuff first to even get this. So personally, I'm not a fan of it, but I can see why they added it. I think generally it's probably good. We also have a revamp of the control for Spidertron. So the remote is now in this menu as I mentioned. So if we control Alt A to make a remote, you can now select Spidertrons in groups. You can now just select them like this, which is so nice. Previously, you'd have to do like a following train to like control multiple of them at once. But if we control them, and then you can see they don't really stay in formation, unfortunately, but you can at least control multiple of them at once, which is really, really fantastic. And it gives you a breakdown here, so you can like queue movements. We were able to do that before, I'm pretty sure, but mostly it's the fact that it just allows you some more options for like their control and selecting multiple ones and having different groups and stuff. And then also they allowed the mining of landfill, so you can now actually pick up landfill, which is really, really nice. If you accidentally make a mistake, like building a setup in the water, it's not going to be permanently ugly. You just you can just pick it up or have robots decon it, and it'll be fixed. Here we have the ability to remotely control vehicles, which is kind of crazy. I mean, there are some limitations to it, but you know, if I like put fuel back in this train, of course it's doing that. Well, it doesn't matter because I can move it. I can move it remotely. So if I come into the remote view, you can do this with other things too. So I think a better example would be like a tank. If I click on this vehicle and do drive remotely, I can drive this without even being here. Now the limitation is you can't see if you don't have map view. So you can see here, I'm just going to be driving to the fog of war, and like, I mean, I can kind of see what I'm going through, but this would be pretty precarious, like trying to fight like this. But, you know, if you leave your tank somewhere, you can just like remotely control it and bring it back to where you want it. which is really, really nice. And then you can obviously stop. I think we're going to end on a funny note. If a train runs out of fuel, so if this runs out of fuel, you can actually manually move the train slowly, like, I think maybe remotely, but you can also just manually move it. So we put it to manual, and you can see I'm like, just, doing like a Flintstone, like legs out the bottom, moving it. But this is actually, like, as silly as this is really nice, because then you can like prevent yourself from getting stuck in the middle of nowhere if you happen to run out of fuel. And then, but that is going to do it. This has been a very long video. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I hope this was helpful to you and gives you a lot to be excited about. Even if you don't buy Space Age, there's just so much great stuff in here that's going to make the gameplay so much better and versatile and smoother across the board. If you have questions about stuff, definitely drop them down below. And if you did enjoy, a like is very much appreciated. And if you're new, welcome. And, feel free to subscribe if you're not already to keep up with future content, Space Age, and base game stuff. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.